Ladies and gentlemen, tonight I'm calling to order the Town Council work session meeting for the town of New Windsor for May 19th, 2025. Our first item on our agenda is the introduction of the new mayor and council member.
He was checking for you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in. My name is Kevin Cornick. I was sworn in last Friday morning. And tonight I have the honor of swearing in our newest council member, Dante Howard. So Dante, if you would come to the front. So Dante, I'm going to read the announcement, and then you just at the end affirm with whichever way you choose. I do, I affirm, I will. Okay? All right. I, Dante Howard, do swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and that I will faithfully and bear true allegiance to the state of Maryland, the town of New Windsor, and support the Constitution and bylaws thereof, and that I will do to the best of my skills and judgment, diligently and faithfully, without partiality or prejudice, execute the office of council member according to the Constitution and laws of the state of Maryland.
I do, I swear, I affirm.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You want to take a few words?
Oh, I am a man of few words. Thank you all for this opportunity, and I look forward to working with you all and doing the best we can for the town of New Windsor.
All right.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you, folks. Our second agenda item is approval of minutes from the April 21st, 2025 work session. Those minutes were emailed out to the council. Do I hear a motion to accept the minutes?
I'll motion for approval.
Okay, we have a motion for approval. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a second. Okay. Now that we have a motion and a second, I'd like to affirm by your by raising of hands or saying I do.
I do.
Saying I do.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. We have affirmation of the vote. Vote is carried. Agenda item number 3, GMB presentation and discussion of the wastewater treatment ENR upgrade. We have Jason Lytle and
Bradley Hogan.
Bradley Hogan.
Yes, sir.
All right. Gentlemen, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much for having us. I'll try to stay brief, but please feel free to interject any questions, comments, or anything. So we completed the PER draft a little bit ago. Went through multiple options. Can we go next slide, please? So this is your existing wastewater plant. There's grit removal, an influent pumping station, going up to 2 continuous sequencing batch reactors, which then decant into UV disinfection, post-aeration, and then from there it goes out to the outfall. We evaluated multiple options to upgrade the facility, looking at 3 options for treatment and 3 options for sludge disposal. The recommended project would be to replace with new sequencing batch reactors, adding denitrification filters, post-equalization tank, and converting the existing tanks into pre-equalization, and then renovating the existing sludge holding tank and continuing to haul liquid sludge. We'd be replacing the UV with the new unit as well. So, apologies, not really showing up great there. Had a couple animations, but we're looking at the. That's all right. I can talk there. It's 3 numbers. So after submitting the PER, the question came up about planning, about long-term planning and the total flow that might eventually go to the wastewater plant. With the ENR upgrade would come a discharge permit renewal So there are some long-term growth considerations that should happen at this stage. So we worked with Gary and Wayne, a little bit with Carroll County to look at these long-term planning limits. And ultimately, your current design capacity is 115,000 gallons per day. Looking at infill lots within your existing served area would take you to about 125,000 gallons. And then building out to your priority future level would take you to 165,000 gallons per day. So we looked at a couple different scenarios for that recommended option at those infill and priority flow rates in order to get a cost estimate for what it would cost to construct. Next slide, please. So we developed a detailed cost estimate, which is summarized here in this table based on each category or each area or unit process at the wastewater plant. This third column there, MDE has rules for what they will fund. Some things are funded 100%, some things are zero, other things are based on for instance, the sludge is based on the increased amount of sludge generation as resulting from phosphorus precipitation, but essentially they have a bunch of equations there for what they will fund, and that gives us what the ultimate project funding percentage from MDE as part of the Bay Restoration Fund grant will be. So this cost estimate here, the first one in the slideshow, is for 125,000 gallons per day. There's a total project cost there of $13.14 million. And according to this breakdown here, we'd anticipate MDE's share of that would be 71.77%, which would leave the town share at about $3.7 million. Please. Second cost estimate there, the same features, but obviously a little bigger in order to handle that priority flow. So getting updated equipment costs from manufacturers, upsizing and recalculating the volume of your tanks. We have new construction costs for each item there. The eligibility percentage is the same for each item, but because the amounts are different, that total is a little off, about 2% different. But the increase to the overall project cost and the slight variation in MDE's percentage share would result in the town share being about $4.5 million. So again, that first bit, town share of 3.7 would allow you to serve your current service area plus any infill lots within it. The second cost estimate with town share of 4.5 million would give you the capacity to go all the way through your priority growth areas.
That first estimate is for 125,000 gallon capacity, and the second, the higher, is for the 165,000?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So on the next slide here, we have that sort of summarized in a table. Now, MDE also has a proration that they will apply to their percentage that they will fund based on expansion. That item by item determination is for existing flows, upgrading but not changing your capacity. If you want to increase your capacity, MDE will prorate that. It's the expanded or current flow allowable capacity divided by the expanded capacity to 0.62. How they got that equation, I don't know, but that's their equation. So we applied that across to give a couple scenarios here. So looking to build out to 125,000, like we talked about, is 13.14 million, and town share of 3.7. If MDE finds that infilling lots within your existing service area is not what they would call reasonable growth, there'd be a slight proration. The town share would go up to 4.186 million. In our opinion, MDE probably wouldn't say building out to priority lots, priority area would be reasonable growth. There'd be some sort of expansion that they'd call that. So the maximum share under that would be if they said your allowable capacity was your current. In that scenario, the town share would be about $6.5 million.
I'm sorry, can you go over that last bit again? You said
at the 165,000 gallon flow rate. And how did we get to the 6.5?
So that would be taking 115,000 gallons per day divided by 165 to the 0.62 power, and then multiplying that times the MDE share from slide 6, which was 69.14%. That got us to, I don't recall what percentage that was, but it brought the MDE share to about $8 million. So I could work backwards there from that. But yeah, so that would put MDU's share about 55%, roughly.
When expansion is considered, they do a ratio to reduce the eligibility of the overall project, so that's why the share would increase.
Oh, I guess I was getting confused on this chart.
Yeah.
We had the town share sitting at 4.5 million.
Yes. And that would have filled that cell that was marked NA on the next slide. That's where that would have gone, but
Okay.
I would not anticipate that MDE would say basically a 50% increase in your discharge capacity would be reasonable growth. It is reasonable for the town to plan expanding, but the definition doesn't quite line up the way they use it.
125 is going infill lots, so it's within your existing service area.
Right.
So we're making the argument that that's reasonable growth underneath of that. But the 165, now you're expanding your service area out in front of where it is, so they're going to consider that expansion.
Okay, gotcha.
And the real quick question on that, 125 there, the 3.7 million matches the town's cost on the spreadsheet. But if the 4 point, where you get to the 4.1, almost 4.2, as if MDE would not recognize that 10,000 additional gallons as reasonable growth, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. That clears things up a little bit? Or
Clear as mud.
clear.
Yeah, we're back in that sweet spot then.
I vaguely remember, maybe it was another time when you all presented, that there's sort of this disincentive on the part of the state. They don't like a lot of growth, or, I mean, that's basically what that is when they're not gonna cost share.
I think they're anticipating when you're seeing flow expansion and growth that there's usually another party involved to bring that growth on, and they like to see them bring cost.
That
or
makes
bring
sense.
money in. So yes, there is a disincentive because they want that other
They want the other
participation.
party. Yeah, okay.
The intent of the DNR program is to fund existing capacity and reasonable capacity and reasonable growth within it. When it gets into the expansion side of it, the DNR funds are not intended to fund that. Now, there's some reasonable approaches to include growth within your upgrade to do it all at the same time. So the formula that they have in there is to try to take into account, pursuing that as one project, but still reducing the share point to just focus on the amount that's existing capacity.
That makes sense.
With both options, are there supplemental funding sources that the town wouldn't have to pay out of pocket to cover the additional cost?
You can pursue other sources. I mean, in terms of, there's funding applications, January, MD always has the funding applications through. You can pursue different things through there. There's earmarks that are available that you can pursue through the legislature.
Any loan forgiveness?
Loan forgiveness is something that they've been doing underneath of some programs now. So the loan forgiveness usually ties into the affordability. So it looks into the population of the town, looks at a bunch of financial information there. But you can always apply for it underneath the funding packages in January and see where you're at. You also have, there's also the SRF loans that are available to fund the balance as well.
Jason or Bradley, remember last time we discussed this, the process if we needed in the future to buy capacity back, seemed to be a big deal last time. I assume it's still a big deal, and what is that process now?
It's looking about reserving the capacity. So by having the 165 within your PER, you can look to reserve that capacity for future growth and keep that in play. So that would be the conversations with MD moving forward, is that, you know, you've got your PER, that you've looked at the 125, the 165 for growth. If you have to go further than that, then you'll have to get back with MD and look and see what they're gonna do. We haven't seen on the latest permits, they haven't been looking to reduce some of that load. So we'll see exactly what they put in terms of the agreement. But once you lose that load, then you're looking to find credits elsewhere to try to get more expansion. And if you recall, we were looking at much higher numbers than this 165 before, and that was really the concern.
Right.
Was trying to get that number down to something that was reasonable and realistic to plan and growth. So this brings it down a lot better. And we're looking at 250?
It was 250, yeah.
250 before.
So the last two slides, there is another way that MDE does cap funding, and that is based on the cost effectiveness of the nitrogen load, which they are effectively buying out of your discharge permit. So essentially the concentration of total nitrogen that you can treat to times your flow times, you know, converting it into pounds, multiplying by 365 days a year is how they'd get to that pounds of nitrogen. Based on the difference between that and your current permit, which allows for 3,178 pounds per year, there is a cost effectiveness cap that MDE could impose. Whether they will or not is always up in the air, but it is technically something they can do. So for the two flow rates, the last two slides outline where that number could fall. And that's just something we wanted to share and make sure that everyone was aware of. We're not going to volunteer to cap funding at that number, but it could be the response that we get when we submit the final PER.
You just wanted to be aware of it. I mean, we have seen recent PERs where they have not imposed that. So while we're trying to avoid it if we can, but depends on how they review it and dictate the parameters.
So Jason, you mentioned a little bit about designing for future capacity and say is there a way to go in at the 125, assuming they accept that as reasonable growth, but then design the plant in a manner to where we could get to 165 if we have a developer or a property that comes in, then we can, you know, look to them for that extra funding.
Yeah, we were looking at it, the difference between the 125 and the 165 is you have couple different options to do that. You either build another reactor or you could expand the reactors that are there. So 125, you're gonna have to build 3 reactors, is what the proposed is in there. So during the design, we can look at given the capability of expanding those reactors to build them higher and build the walls up, get more capacity into it. So we can look at different options there to build some expansion capability into it in the future. And then you could look at just building up the walls, and then maybe we may have to replace the equipment depending on the time and what you do anyway.
Right.
But try to build that within the design so that you've got capability to expand with reasonable cost.
Right.
Same thing with the channels and the piping. We can look at those and the capacity and try to upsize the pipe if it's helpful for the future. But that's something we can review through the design and take a close look at.
That's something that we would, pass on to the developers if and when they would come to us to build. Say this is we're set up for this, and you wanna build and you need more, then you're gonna have to contribute to that.
So it would have to be, not only would the plant have to be maybe retrofitted to meet that capacity level, we would still there would still be a need then at that point to go back to the state to find that additional capacity. If we took the 125 capacity, if they said if it was reasonable growth, then we wanted to get to 165 because we built the plant to be able to handle what that delta between 125 and 165, we would have to put that on a developer to fund those credits, whatever that process would be.
Either that or just underneath this process, we can reserve that capacity. So we can work with MDE and the grant agreement to just reserve that nutrient capacity for the future. We'll have to see how they react to that in terms of the grant eligibility. It could.
I mean, if it skews the numbers back into where the town's looking at 9 million for their share.
But yeah, that is the option. Yeah, that is the other option, is that you put it on the developer then to bring that nutrient load to the town as well. And that can, got septic systems and different things that you can bring online.
So if the MD does not accept reserving that additional capacity between 165 and 125, and then down, let's say 10 years down the road, we got a developer come in and pop property annexes or whatever it is, would that then require a permit modification and with that change to the plan at that time?
You're gonna have to do a permit modification anyway.
Okay.
So, when you increase the capacity of the plant, you're gonna have to do that anyway, even if you had to work it on.
Okay.
You've got more than just the nutrient load to worry about. With your stream, you also have BFD and
Right.
solid loads and even E. coli, fecal loads that you gotta worry about on any expansion, because those are locked in as well.
Okay.
Could you go back to the first slide, the picture of the tank?
The existing?
Yeah, this one here. So it's kind of hard to see, but that's our SBR tank. And so the orange below the white surface there is a liner that we installed based on the tanks failing. And this happened twice. So that's one of the reasons why we're looking at an ENR upgrade, is because of the tanks being essentially compromised. So we're looking at probably $250,000 per tank to replace the tanks. And there's 3. And they're all lined like that. So I would estimate in the next 4 to 5 years, if we can, we might have to reline the tanks again. So that was one of the reasons why we were looking for an ENR upgrade to get those tanks replaced. And the other reason was the cost. So basically, with MDE, if we get our foot in the door faster, the percentage that we would get would be greater than if we wait to kind of upgrade the plant to be compliant. And then the other thing is, and I don't know if we want to touch base on this or not, is the permit, the change in the permit and the PFAS, potential PFAS requirement, which isn't included, I believe, in these numbers. And it would be based on the recommendations of MDE and what the effluent numbers look like at the discharge point. So that's something else to consider, and you can touch on that if you.
What we've seen in the permit, it's gonna occur in the permit grant, which is coming sometime in the next 5 years. But within the permit renewal, MDE is imposing PFAS requirements, which include, and right now they include monitoring and record keeping. So what they're going to start doing is I believe it's within a certain amount of time after the permit becomes effective, you have to do sampling of your influent, your effluent, your sludge. And then depending on what those results are, in coordination with the state, will then push you into other requirements potentially. If it goes over a threshold, which MDE has not defined yet, they'll look into trying to get into source control, which means going in and surveying the collection system, see if you can identify any sources of PFAS from the collection system. In this region, you're more likely issues with PFAS are probably going to be in your II, if you don't have it in your wells themselves. And I hope your wells have been pretty good.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
But it's a good chance you might have it in your INI and your leakage coming into your system. So we'll see when those samples come through. It'll be interesting to see how those results come out.
For the lay folks here and at home, I&I is,
Inflow and infiltration. So it's basically the leakage into the sewer system.
oh,
Either from groundwater coming in through cracks in the pipes
Right.
themselves when they're submerged, or from like a storm event getting in through the manholes. You notice with the manholes have little pick holes, just holes
Sure.
for picks. It'll just leak in through the pick holes and come through, or cracks in the manholes, cracks in the sewers that are just working their way through. You can also have, illicit connections with, downspouts that might be connected in, but I think you've got most of those under control.
Yeah. Floor drains, those kinds of things.
Some pumps are another,
Yeah.
another big one.
And it adds up fast. I mean, if somebody has a sump pump hooked up to the sewer system, it adds up fast. So we see changes in flow during rain events, and it's pretty significant. So we're tightening up on things, and we've gotten rid of a lot of those connections and did a lot of repairs, and of course the sewer lining, but they still exist.
Continue to do the sewer line.
Yeah.
Bradley, the two site drawings that you've shown on the next two slides, my copy's a little light and I really can't tell, but the new equipment on the third slide, does that fit within the footprint of the current fenced-in site, or do we need to expand the site as well?
I would need to go back to look at the fence, but I know it all fits within the existing town property. I remember this did come up during the PER, and we did confirm it fits there, but I think we may have had to bump the fence out. For the future tanks, I want to say it all fit within the existing fence line.
Town property, we own all that property down there.
Yeah.
And, we're in the future thinking about parks and other things with that area. I was wondering what the impact.
There's an access road back there. I think even with the future tanks, which we wouldn't need to put in because that gets you to 250,000 gallons per day, which was never realistic. But even with those, plus the offset to the fence, that was still at least 20 feet from that access road.
The tennis courts are on the other side of that.
Mm-hmm. Got
Correct.
the road, the fence, the road, the pavilion, and the courts.
Right.
Yeah, so their overall footprint, if I recall correctly, it's not much bigger than what's there now, which is really good. It doesn't encroach on the flat area that we filled in at the old lagoon site.
Okay, thank you.
okay, are there other questions?
What's the next steps at this point?
Next step is to finalize the PER. Looking to see, really we were looking to see whether the town's most interested in the 125 expansion or looking to the 165 expansion to try to take in future now. So that way we can draft the PER accordingly for the floor councils.
And if the current upgrade would be for 125, if we'd be interested in holding or reserving nutrient load or looking to plan to buy that back or find other avenues in the future.
So we just need to know how we finalize up the PER and then we can wrap it up, get it to MDE. Once we get MDE, then we'll review it. They'll come through with a eligibility determination. It is a draft underneath the PER. During these projects, the eligibility is kind of a living document and change. Can change it after every review. So underneath the PER, you'll get an initial eligibility, and then during the design, when we submit the design for permitting, we'll do another eligibility review, we'll revisit it at that point in time. And it could change back and forth depending on, what's incorporated in the design. And then that design eligibility then is then applied to the bid. So when it goes out for bid, you get the construction, bids in. So the construction, if your eligibility is 70%, the construction bid comes in at $10 million, then MD's paying $7 million. And they apply that across change orders and different things, and they apply that to the entire project. So construction, AE services, they would all be applied at 70% through the construction period. At the design side, underneath the minor facilities, ME reimburses. So that would get reimbursed during the design part. And then ME rectifies that then once the construction comes through, bring the overall project that would be really back to 70%, or whatever the eligible percentage is.
So still got a lot of steps to go, but you all have to decide where you want to go.
Right.
No pressure.
So suppose the council authorizes the next steps. Is that a commitment with MDE, or is that something that can be reconsidered after we go through that process?
No, you can reconsider. So like I said, it is a living document as you're going through this. The PER is going to be one step in this to get your preliminary eligibility. During the design, you can, if you decide to go to 165 because something's coming in, putting pressures on the town for some growth, you can move that way. It'll just change the next eligibility review. So the next eligibility review will just be changed as it goes through. So it is something that can be adjusted as you move forward.
It seems, when I'm looking at it right now, what I see is if I just look at the 165, I have, and I'm looking at the town share, of course, what's going to cost the town, and I have like 3 numbers that it could be. Everything from 4.5 million to over $9 million could be the town share of the project at 165, and we won't know that, right, until it goes through the process and they make decisions on how things fall out in their eyes.
So I think we'd know which bucket it could fall into after the PER. I think at that point, MD would make a determination that I think we could rely on of whether it's reasonable growth, right? Or would they come back and revisit that
The
afterwards?
165, the 4.5 number for the town share, I don't believe that's reasonable.
Not going to happen.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Okay.
And he's not going to say that 165 is reasonable growth.
Okay.
So what they're going to do is they're going to apply the flow expansion. So I think the 6.5 number is the most likely number coming to 165. The 125, there's a good argument to be made that that's reasonable growth. So the 3.7 number in terms of the town share, I believe that's the most realistic number for them to use. So that's our argument on that side, is that we're gonna make the argument that that's reasonable growth and make things on that.
Can we I'm sorry to hog the, if you guys have questions, jump in here. I just been through this once with is there a way to extrapolate out that growth between what we are currently today, 115,000, that extra 10,000 to 125, so that's 10,000. When we say growth, what does that give us? Was that our EDUs at
250.
250 a day?
Divide that.
So what does that,
10,000
what,
by 250
Yeah.
is the number of EDUs.
40.
40. So we're saying 40 houses that we could add to the system
At 125.
at 125.
It's not a ton.
That's not a ton, right? That's,
That
Now,
would not be in town.
you
We
know,
don't have room for 40 houses.
we don't have 40 houses in town, right? True. But if we were looking at future growth and maybe annexing or not annexing or thinking about annexing, that, you're not gonna annex a piece of property, do all that for 40 houses. That's
Going to the 165 is 200.
is 200. Okay.
just for reference.
PDUs.
Yeah, just for reference.
But that is, I mean, that's in accordance with what you got from the county master plan.
Correct.
So would it, again, just for clarification, if we went with the 125 and where you guys are thinking they're going to, indeed, and we know that that's no guarantee ever, but we could still try to reserve that capacity and still keep our funding and our town cost at the 125 is the thought process.
That's the conversation, yeah.
Yeah. And that's gonna be, the key there is to look at what they're gonna do in terms of the grant agreement and everything to make sure that they're not consuming that entire capacity, that they're meeting the 165 capabilities to expand.
And to go back to the point you made earlier with designs being reimbursable, the town share would not, for lack of a better word, come due until construction documents are out to bid. That's when you'd want to have that money in hand, or another funding source for it, a loan set up or whatever.
Yeah, so you have time to pursue funding. So until the construction bids and pursuing the construction side, that's when you have the other funding available to fund the township.
And if you get to that point and the money's not there, you just don't put it out to bid, correct? Or is that?
Yeah, I mean, you can, the way the DRF is set up, MDE can walk away from the project at any time, you guys can walk away from the project at any time, depending on, just the financial, or just decisions as to how you want to pursue. So they don't commit you to moving forward on any of these steps, except for the next step that you move into. So once you move into it, then they're looking for you to finish it. But as the eligibility, if the eligibility that's done as the design moves forward, if that's not in the town's favor and the town wants to back out, you can't.
So just so I'm clear, if we built the plant for the 125,000 capacity and tried to reserve up to the 165, would the plant cost be somewhere in between?
Project cost would match the 125,000. That's just for, designing that. But MDE's share could be limited to.
So what they would do is lower their.
They may
Lower their part.
lower what their eligibility is, where they're cut it off.
Right, so we probably would anticipate it would cost us more to go that route. Potentially, right, okay.
And I would assume,
We don't have to, it'll be, we're not signing on the dotted line tonight or
Right.
anytime soon.
Well, I'm just trying to.
Yeah, it's a lot of moving targets, a lot of variables. Connor, I didn't mean to cut you off.
So I would assume that if we were to reserve the 165, we would want to build the plant to be able to expand to that, and that would incur additional costs versus just building the 125. Slight, but still there.
The total project cost does go up when you go to the 165.
Right.
But the other side to it is that because of the way MD has it funded, they also only fund a portion.
Right.
Right.
Um,
With this being a PER and going through this eligibility, if you want to be aggressive in pursuing the funding with MDE, you could go at the 165, and we can pursue the 165 number underneath the PER and see what they come back with eligibility. And then underneath of that eligibility, if the eligibility is not favorable, we have worked with MDE in other towns before where you get that initial eligibility, and then you work with them and coordinate to try to either increase the eligibility or change some of the parameters to make it a more favorable project. So if you want to start at 165, we can do that, and then we'll see where MDE goes with it and we'll react from there.
do we foresee any additional or new environmental regulations that may impact this? If we build it out to 165, but we don't utilize the 165, and in 8 years they come back and say, hey, we're now looking at this, like, is there anything in the wind that you guys have picked up on that if we build bigger but we don't use it, we just kind of wasted the money since we have to rebuild or reconfigure?
PFAS right now is a big unknown.
Right.
So that's a question, and the biggest question to me on PFAS is, the discharge. Because if it's going out in the stream discharge, you may have to put more treatment on to handle that. The other side is sludge. Right now, your sludge, we're not doing anything with sludge.
We're rehabbing the tank, adding a new decanter to all thickened sludge, but no, the day-to-day process is more or less the same.
So that means that you're hauling sludge to somebody else, and then they gotta deal with the sludge.
Right.
So if there's PFAS in that sludge, they're gonna get, other places that you're handling sludge to are gonna get more tight on PFAS regulations in this point too. So if they find it in there, then, it can change the game as to really what treatment needs to be done.
But overall, those changes for PFAS would not be a huge change to the system design, or would it be kind of a rebuild what you just built kind of thing?
I think it'd be, you'd have to add more to it.
It's
I don't know
the
that any of those
effluent side.
changes would make you undo this. It'd just be another unit process on it.
Right. Okay.
And with PFAS, what most places are doing, if they're finding it in the effluent, I mean, you're not producing it at the wastewater plant, it's coming in your influent. So they're getting more into source control. And that's I&I, and that's maybe adding water treatment out of your wells. That's more likely than treating it at the wastewater plant.
Right.
One of the first steps underneath the design is, and I think we did it underneath PDR, is we asked for effluent requirements for the design so that we can plan it. With the permit under renew at this point, and with them adding PFAS, if we request planning limits as the first step underneath the design, I'm expecting that they're gonna throw these PFAS requirements into it too, to give us an idea as to what the requirements are gonna be looking at, so.
The monitoring requirements,
Yeah,
right? Okay.
so they may, and that may be something that he wants us to do underneath the design, is to, get ahead of the curve and start doing some of that sampling, so we don't get too far down the line on this design and then find out that the PFAS issue creates a problem we'll have to address later.
So,
That would be reasonable.
so in my mind, it seems like it would be better and maybe even cheaper to treat the PFAS on the effluent side than it would the headworks.
You're right, but the easiest way to address it is not let it come in your collection system in the
Yeah.
first place. So if you find, it can be, it can be body shops, car washes, around the firehouse, anything, firefighting foam is a big contributor to going through it. So any place that you've got potential for flows to get into the system, if you can isolate those off and either make them pre-treat or isolate them from your system, that's the best way, is to keep it out. Treatment of wastewater is challenging and expensive.
So would you recommend, suppose there was no way to keep it out or we couldn't source detect it, would you recommend saving some space? So right now the proposed layout is kind of the same as where we're at now, minimal expansion. Would you suggest reserving some of the old lagoon site for potential treatment or expansion of the plant based on future unknown regulations? I know that's a catch-22, but it's tight there.
It's possible. It wouldn't hurt to make sure you had some land available to you in the future, if you can. But it's hard to say what the requirements are gonna be when we move forward from here.
And one last thing, would spray irrigation work on the old lagoon site or not really? Do you need a bigger area?
I don't know if you can use the
Escape top here.
You have to look at the hydrogeology of the area and determine that before you can really use that site. Because it's an old filling lagoon, my guess is that it's probably not.
Yeah. So that's one, so we have one discharge point. So if we decided to go with a smaller capacity, you would have to come up with some other kind of process, in other words. So spray or spray irrigation would be another process to get credits to be able to essentially discharge.
Yeah, that's your option for the nutrient load, is if ultimately it was was set at 125, and then you wanted to expand it to 165, you could do spray irrigation for that up to 40 and use that with your district. But then you gotta find a site, and you gotta have a location to spray for it, and put that infrastructure in place too.
They're typically pretty good size,
Yeah.
Yeah.
bigger than our lagoon.
Manchester has
Yeah,
spray
yeah.
for their district.
Right. But the PFAS requirements for testing are going to be in our new permit if and when they ever renew it.
They will be.
So the testing part of it is in the, we've applied for renewal of our permit. It takes usually a year to year and a half, or whatever, for them to do it. But those requirements for testing will be in there in that big permit.
And that's happening to everywhere across the state, across the nation.
Okay, any further questions? Thank you, gentlemen, and a lot to think about and ponder.
Well, we'll keep the discussions going and give you guys some direction as soon as possible. Yeah.
If you guys have any questions or anything?
I'm sure we will.
Sure. Yeah, I was gonna say, if you could leave your contact with us, that'd be good.
Yeah, they know how to get a hold of us.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. All right, you're welcome to stay.
On purpose.
Recommend it.
No. Okay, he's Pennsylvania, right? Yeah.
All right, folks, item number 4 is proposed changes for bulk trash, Public Works Director.
Okay, after consultation with the supervisor of Public Works and other Public Works employees, we would like to potentially change bulk trash service. So we've increased town staffing levels, and as everyone knows, we pick up bulk trash in spring or we have folks come to Gear Lane in the spring and the fall. We feel like this change would increase participation, allowing all residents to benefit from their tax contributions. It would make the service more accessible to folks that might not have trucks or equipment or vehicles to bring stuff down to Gear. And it would make things easier for folks in the retirement communities. So as I mentioned, bulk trash, currently folks drop things off at Gear Lane. And there's an assumed liability risk with that because of the dumpster area and the fact that our public works guys are offloading trucks and cars that belong to folks, and there's potential risk for damages to folks' vehicles like headliners, interior panels, scratching their vehicles, things like that. And just the fact that we have residents on the vehicles throwing things off that are heavy. The other issue that we have is it's hard to coordinate folks that are coming in and out because they all have different size items. And so essentially you have to play Tetris to get things lined up in the dumpsters properly to take maximize use of the space of the dumpster. So we are requesting to transition bulk trash collection from curbside on regular weekdays that we're working in the spring and fall, effective this fall, and authorizing Public Works leadership to manage and control a program and the implementation, logistics, and scheduling details to support our roles and responsibilities. And then authorizing us to distribute public communication materials and implement public notification and an education campaign prior to the first curbside pickup. This proposed shift from Gear Lane drop-off to curbside collection is based on operational and safety and community service considerations, which include improved accessibility for all residents, especially seniors and those without access to large vehicles and have limited mobility, increased safety for residents and public works staff, by eliminating the need for unloading at the drop-off site, more efficient use of staffing while encouraging increased resident participation and reducing property maintenance violations, better compliance with the MS4 permit requirements through material separation and documented collection and controlled disposal. So we all know about the MS4 permit, and they like us to document, getting rid of waste and recycling things properly. And the elimination of after-hours dumping, and we've had quite a few incidents of that. Increased public and staff safety, reduce liability and vehicle damage risk, expanded service and access for the retirement communities and high-density areas like Snyder Summit, higher participation across new and existing neighborhoods, and improved environmental compliance. And some of the risks and challenges and the mitigation would be temporary curbside clutter prior to pickup. The mitigation would be clear communication on placement and timing expectations, resident adjustment of new service. That's always a challenge. So we would reach out, have a frequently asked question notification system for town staff when they're receiving calls, and inclement weather impacts. We would plan alternative collection dates in advance. And we're looking for direction on the council and thoughts on this.
There's a lot to chew on there. Questions?
So, we talked the other day about it. My concern is that it may be taken advantage of, and we have sidewalks full of stuff. I think a way to alleviate some of that would be those that can still drop off at gear, and those that can't can schedule to have the guys come by during the work week to pick their stuff up, not bringing it out of the house, not bringing it off the porch, but collect it from this address, that address, etc. I just don't want to see everyday trash just sitting out, and you guys are making a lot more trips than expected because it's easier for people to just toss it on the sidewalk instead of it being just what that program is for, with bulk items, couches, mattresses, etc. And then if you decide that we're not taking all the small stuff, then it's still sitting there. So that's my 2 cents.
So, it sounds feasible and it sounds good on the surface. But before we make a decision on it, I'd like to just throw out some more thoughts so we have a complete picture of it. So Wayne provided us lots of good information, and he provided us 11 benefits of the change, and I went through it, and I have thoughts on each one of them. So number one and number 2 were public and staff safety and decreased liability. And I guess I could make a point that it is not as safe for our public works crew, and now all the liability is on the town. We could be damaging private property, and now the staff is lifting all heavy items. If people are putting out refrigerators or anything like that, it's all on our staff. Number 3 was public works controls what is picked up. Dumpsters won't be rejected by the landfill, and that is a big deal, right? We pay if the dumpsters are rejected. But Public Works can reject anything down at Gear Lane. So if someone's going to throw something in there while Public Works is there, obviously it can be rejected then. Balanced staff workload. Well, the workload is all directed by the volume and to be picked up, and we would be unknown at this time what that workload would be. Okay, I'll just keep on going. Controlled participation. No need to see IDs. regulated service by the Public Works. So down there currently, when someone pulls up, Public Works diligently asks them to see, an ID to make sure they're New Windsor residents. So the deal would be, we would have no idea where the items came from that you're picking up on private property. So someone from outside of town could come and, hey, bring your stuff into my driveway and dump it here. Don's gonna be picking it up next week. And you say that never happens, but we did have that happen with just regular trash. People bring in regular trash and put it at their friend's property, and the town picks it up. So it does happen. Number 6, town participation increases, clean up the town, clutter, less violations. And this kind of what Connor said, we may end up having more violations from items that are not going to be picked up. So Public Works is going to have a list of what can be picked up, but people are going to put out what they put out. And Public Works is only going to pick up what we're supposed to pick up, and then other stuff is just going to sit there. Are residents going to take it back into their house? We don't know. Just don't know. Stops after hour dumping if residents are not permitted at the gear lane. So locking down gear lane is fine if residents still have a place to drop off yard waste during the bulk trash thing. So if we lock down, gear lane, our yard waste place is also out of touch for our community residents. Helps retirement communities. Well, there's no arguments there. Obviously, if someone was going to come and pick up stuff out of your driveway, it would help not only the retirement community, everybody. It would be a lot easier, sure. Number 9, increases new development participation. So I guess I'll make the statement that bulk trash is a service that the town offers. It's not a community social event. I'm not looking to increase participation in bulk trash. I'm looking to offer a service that anybody wants to use it within the town can use it. It's there twice a year, period. Whether they use it or not, I'll have to say, if you look around town right now, our town is probably the cleanest that it's been in a long time from the past, where we had lots of mattresses sitting around and people just had junk. The town's pretty clean right now. So things have been working, what we've been doing. Allows separation of materials, and Public Works to control disposal. Dumpsters become disorganized, and we spend a great deal of time supporting items. Public Works just has to do that when people are dropping off. I know sometimes I did spend Saturdays down there with them, and I know sometimes it gets busy, sometimes it's not. But they just have to manage that flow, and if it takes a little longer to separate it, then it does. And really, separating the items is no different than if you take your stuff up to the county, right? If you go take a bunch of stuff and some of it's recyclable, you'd stop at the recyclable. If it's white metal, you jump at the white metal thing, and the rest of the stuff you take down to the dumpster. So you're separating it up there by yourself. So that was kind of the I don't want to say counter, because I'm not trying to argue the points. I'm just trying to show another side to the points that the benefits. But I will say, it looks, right now bulk trash is twice a year. It's a half a day on a Saturday that our crew is there collecting bulk trash. And it looks like we are putting a lengthy process in place. We're making it huge. We're talking about maybe 2 weeks of time that the Public Works is now going to be doing bulk trash. Maybe not full-time, I'm not trying to say that, but there's going to be a 2-week period of time that they're going to be picking up and scheduling and doing all this. And staff is going to be involved with communication effort and all these things. And we just hired more Public Works people. We just hired more staff people inside because they were very busy. This seems like we're taking a 1 day a year process, 2 half days, and making it two weeks, a whole month process for the year. And I don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze.
I got one more comment that I thought about when he was done. If we do on the curb to potentially alleviate, hey, Public Works isn't going to take this, but it can go in the trash truck, have this pick up Tuesday. Because then trash day's the next day. If it sits overnight, not a huge deal. Trash takes it. That kind of alleviates that concern if people are sticking stuff out that we don't want to take, but trash will take, kind of deal. So it does kind of alleviate it's on the homeowner to take it back in and then dispose of it.
Does Hughes currently pick stuff up that's not inside the cans though?
Not typically.
And we do advertise bulk trash as items that are too large to be normally picked up during trash days.
But if somebody just starts putting out their normal trash, a couple trash bags in addition to a fridge, then the trash bags get left. The next day, Hughes comes through, puts the trash bags in the truck, sidewalk's clean. Potentially. But it's at least a mitigation step that probably would occur most times.
Wade, what are the abuses that we're seeing down at Carroll?
Trash in the yard waste dumpsters, access after hours. Sometimes people go there at night. Contractors utilizing the dumpsters. You know, the dumpsters are unsupervised. So, I mean, in reality, if we fenced Gear Lane off entirely and we limited the hours of that site, we would solve all this, and this could go away, and we could continue bulk trash the way it is now.
Yeah.
The disadvantage to that is, you know, the convenience for residents to come in at, you know, in the evenings or on the weekends to dump their yard waste, and we would see an uptick in how much yard waste we would have to pick up. But you eliminate the liability side of things. You eliminate people dumping trash if they're not authorized to be there. And we change that service, it would solve all of this.
The fencing.
The fencing, limiting the hours.
Have we looked at what it would cost to do the fencing? Have we talked about that?
$25,000. But the site would be secure.
How about 2 cameras?
I'll give you
Two
my
old cell phones as cameras.
That site needs to be secured.
It does. With the equipment down there, it does.
So I always make the argument that, you know, it's a great service for our community to have those dumpsters down there for yard waste. If we have it open the time the town office is open, the majority of our citizens can't use it because citizens are at work. They come home and do their stuff in the evenings. It's closed. On Saturdays and Sundays, it would be closed. So that's not a benefit to anybody. So Wayne's absolutely right. The increase in the amount of yard waste they would have to pick up would, you know, be increased. Plus, people would have that sitting around their property, you know, for several weeks. Bulk trash is twice a month. So, I mean, yard waste is twice a month. So that yard waste would be sitting around in everyone's yard for excess weeks. And there is quite a few people that utilize it after hours. Now, Wayne is certainly on point with people, you know, dumping, you know, I was down there on Saturday, dumped off some yard waste, and I pulled out and was heading down the road, and I saw a guy pull in with a cart behind his truck, and he had a dishwasher and a bench on there. And I know where he was going, so I went back, and before he had a chance to dump, I told him, you know, bulk trash is gone, and there was still trash sitting there, metal that the guys haven't taken to the scrap yard yet. So it looked like bulk trash was there. Maybe he was just going to throw it there, but I, you know, told him the process, and he went on his way and didn't, you know, have any issue with that. But there's also, we don't have any signage down there next to the dumpsters that say yard waste only. We have a pile of scrap sitting there. So sure, most of us know that, but I tell you, someone takes some crap down there and they see that laying there. But it happens when there's just yard waste in there, they throw junk in there and the guys have to sort it out, and that happens frequently. I thought, like Connor said, that some cameras down there, and I think we could catch some license plate numbers and go through the proper channels, and you know, we could put up some signs, you know, the place is, you know, watched with camera, and you will be cited if you dump. That's dumping, right? And it's a $300 fine for dumping and things like that. So
The fire department has cameras at their dumpsters and signs that say that, so maybe start with something simpler.
So what if we posted it, no after hours dumping from whatever time to whatever time, and then we actually enforce that? So in other words, would it be reasonable, no dumping after 8 PM or 7 PM? There's really no point in anybody being down there at that time because it's not very well lighted and there's a hazard. I mean, the wall has no guardrail or anything and somebody could back into the dumpsters. So maybe it's posting signs at first and seeing how that works. And I just feel like if people get comfortable going in and out of there all the time, they're going to use it as their own property. And that's where we get people that take advantage. And clearly the dumpster could be full of yard waste, but yet they'll throw trash in it. And you know, it happens all the time. And if we don't catch it and Republic takes it to the landfill, they charge us for trash for the yard waste, which is inherently heavy, you know, because it's been rained on and it's wet. It could cost us $1,500 to get rid of. That's a $1,500 mistake, honestly. And it's happened for years. So it's just something to consider.
I mean, I'm hearing the need for cameras down there, and we have the system now for plates that we can utilize.
Alec got cameras down there, and don't they have to have internet?
They
So we have to get a
cameras-
special camera that has a SIM card. We briefly
Yeah,
spoke
we
about
did.
it when we were upgrading all of our cameras here. So that would, I don't know how much that costs.
I mean, you could get like high-end game cameras that don't need a connection, and when Public Works finds trash in the dumpster, you pull the SIM card, put it on the laptop and review it. You wouldn't need live monitoring for down there. It's certainly nice, and if you can roll it into whatever network plan the town has, great, for not a dumb cost. But you wouldn't need live monitoring. You would just need playback, who dumped this and when. And you have a pretty finite window because you guys are down there a bunch, and not glossing over that it does need to be secured. We do need to do that at some point, but right now, the immediate fix is a couple cameras. We can put whatever signs up, whether we post it or if it's just this dumpster's this is this, an active sign by the gate that says yard waste only from this date period or whatever. But I think all of the mitigations point to quickly being a couple of cameras that we can capture license plates with. We just need to make sure that they're good enough to capture license plates. And you could put one at the gate and put one up by the dumpsters. And that way you're catching in and out and at the dumpster.
And do we need better lighting as well, if we're gonna have cameras?
The electric's limited there and we would have to run electric lines and that's a couple $1,000s to.
Who's gonna enforce it?
Have we looked in the costs for cameras?
Not those types. I have.
Not those types, but so our SCADA system has SIM cards and potentially I could figure out an RTU or even Antietam has when they get up and running, they have a station right at the tennis courts. So we could potentially run, you know, an underground line 20 foot and be ready to go. So we'll have to check with Antietam.
Less than 25 grand?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So just one last thing, we still have the issue, if we get signs, we get cameras, we have to be able to enforce it.
That's something our code enforcement officer could do.
Are you talking?
You issue a municipal infraction for somebody illegally dumping, they don't pay it, what are you gonna do? It's not, you don't have their house, you're not putting a lien on their house.
So post it and then they can be trespassed if they don't. I mean, you go a different route that way, but I mean, there is no enforcement for getting a financial restitution from it.
There's probably
Other than
nothing
going-
that's fail-safe, but I think that a certain percentage of people would be dissuaded by the fact that there's a camera and a sign. You know, some people are gonna be like, oh, forget it, and drive away. Versus now, there's nothing to stop you from doing whatever you want down there, really, basically.
We could check with Kevin to see if we put no trespassing
If you can afford,
signs,
enforce it.
if he can then the county sheriff enforce no trespassing after a certain time.
See, and the other thing is we have, and the whole reason why we looked into a fence probably 3 or 4 years ago was the fact that we had equipment stored there and just tampering and things like that. I mean, you're inviting people to a public space. So whatever happens at that public space, we're ultimately liable and responsible for. And it's very secluded there. So somebody, if somebody would fall in the dumpster or there was an incident that would happen, nobody would know. I mean, you really have to scream. It's that, and that's the reason why we were looking into like live cameras, is you would get notifications, whereas with the SIM cards, you're downloading data and we'd be basically handing it over to the insurance company after somebody fell in the dumpster or what have you.
Sounds like we need to loop Michelle into this conversation too at the next time we talk about it, because maybe we need some signs that say dump at your own risk too, things like that. So, but I mean, we're not lawyers, so. But, interesting conversation.
All right, any other comments, questions? All right,
Did you about this stuff?
thank you, Director Dunn. Fire thumbs. Okay, is that it for your?
That's it for that one, yeah.
Okay.
You have something else?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Number 5. Okay, Public Works updates. Blue Ridge Pump Station is paved and the fence is complete. We had a few warranty issues with the generator. We're hoping to get those resolved Wednesday. Substantial completion walkthrough with Town Manager Dye and myself and GMB is tomorrow. Booster Station line town side. So this is a line that goes from the booster station to in town. We had a water leak on a lateral, found out that it was galvanized and it supplied a home there, so we have to replace that. It's about 100 foot. We're waiting on a cost estimate to do that now. The homeowner actually noticed water bubbling up out of their meter pit, and the whole line is just deteriorated. It's terrible. So we marked that, and because of the rain, we haven't been able to fix it yet. Atlee Ridge Sewer Station, Public Works finished grading at Atlee Ridge Sewer Station, installed electrical conduit, making use of the new excavator. We also removed an old filter system, and we plan on installing a blower to help combat the grease. The War Memorial, it's scheduled to be repointed tomorrow. We have a local contractor in town. He's gonna do that free of no charge. So we were able to get that scheduled. And so you'll see him working over there tomorrow. And the wooden wheels for the cannons are supposed to be completed by June. So Eclectic said that the time to restore the cannons wouldn't be but a couple weeks. Once they got the wheels in, they would start moving towards getting those cannons restored. And that's all I have.
All right, any questions? Thank you, sir. Next item on the agenda. Council member committees discussion. All right, this was intended to be in conjunction with item number 7, but currently we have in community enhancement, Councilwoman Schultz. Public Works is Councilman Hoffman. Water and Sewer is open. Public Safety is open. But I'd like to take a portion of that, or keep a portion of that. And then Economic Development is Councilman Frock. I just wanted your input on any potential areas where you thought specifically additions. Councilman Howard, if you have suggestions on things that you'd be interested in, I'm open to listening to those.
Sure, water and sewer would be something I'd be interested in.
Okay. All right. Any other suggestions?
I actually mentioned this to the mayor
Yeah.
after he was elected, and just said, I thought, these committees have all been in place with these focus for a long time, for as long as I've been on the council, and I think quite a bit before that. And I don't know if everybody would even decide tonight, because we might need to think about it.
Sure.
But do we want to keep it the way we've been doing it for all this time? Or like the mayor said, are there other areas that you could fold into one of those, not necessarily eliminating any area of focus? So I was thinking maybe we just put it out there, and if somebody has something tonight, but other than that, we'll think about it and talk about it next time, or next probably work session. But
Yeah, that actually, we don't have to commit to a change tonight. This is more about brainstorming about potential areas that we could modify or change. Not eliminating necessarily, or if we find a different area. I know that when I was new to the council, I took over public safety, and I thought there was more that I could provide for the community, so I added on the public safety and health, and I attended the opioid prevention coalition meetings, which at times there were some things that I think valuable information that we were able to acquire for the town or bring to the town. So again, this is just an opportunity. If you have some areas that you think that could help enhance the town and provide a benefit for the town, we're open for that. And like Councilwoman Schultz mentioned, we don't have to decide tonight. We could take some time to think about it and come up with some further ideas for the next planning session.
Well, just to add to it, Mayor Cornick and I discussed briefly adding infrastructure projects kind of to the water and sewer committee, since they typically involve tearing up a road, tearing up a sidewalk, something like that. But then that would also include parks, which may kind of overlap with community enhancement. That may also overlap a little bit with public works, but we at least can guarantee that one of us is catching all of the little details and getting it out to everybody. And I don't think anybody's really going to be stepping on toes as long as the information's getting out there and it's available to the public.
Yeah, that's a good point. Then also for Councilman Howard's benefit, the committees have a chair and then you have a co-chair, right?
which is another member.
So there are two people on each committee. So that is something that, I don't know if you knew that, but.
All new to me.
Yep, all new to you, okay.
Council reports are at the council meetings.
Yeah.
At the regular meetings.
Right. Council meetings.
So, all right. More importantly, we have an open seat and we need to fill that seat. So we need to start the process to transparently add that person to the council, which to me is a very important process. So we need to do that. And I guess, and we've been through this process before, unfortunately, but this time it's not due to somebody's early departure. So this time around, I guess we'll have to make a public, I know we will, we'll have to open up for a public application.
We do have another spot open in the planning commission, so that's already posted.
Okay.
That, I think I said June 16th.
Yes.
Yes, off the top of my head, where that would go to Mark and Dave.
Right.
So then you do have, just so you guys are aware, there is another posting for another committee. So, well, I think town council should take higher, but this is
Priority on that?
priority, but it's not my decision. In the past, we have posted it, and I believe we put an ad in the paper as well. I have to double check on that.
Well, we can continue with that process. We've been successful doing it that way. Any suggestions on that? I mean, I think it's important to put it out there publicly so that folks can apply for it and then just put a deadline for it. So that,
Well, right, per the town charter,
Yeah.
we have to appoint somebody.
right.
And we had decided on the process that we will put it out publicly, whether it's the paper, our website, Facebook, wherever, we should use all those venues, pick the date, and then I believe we have them come in. We had a series of questions that we talked to them, and then we, as the council, had to make a decision on who we thought would be the best candidate for the vacant position. Right?
They submit a letter / resume.
Yeah.
Letter of interest or / resume.
And then we brought them all in.
We had them come to a work session, I believe,
Yes.
and then we interviewed them, and then we went into closed session and voted.
Is that, you remember?
I'm trying to remember. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't remember.
Connor
if it
was the
a work
last
Session or
one.
council, but it was a letter of interest and not necessarily a resume, but just kind of your background and everything. And then, yeah, it was a series of questions in front of the council, and you guys departed and voted and came back.
I thought that was like 4 months ago, and actually it was, you're almost close to a year.
About 10 months ago, yeah, 9 months ago.
When would you like these letters due? I mean,
I'd like to be able to talk to them at the next work session. What do you all think?
How quick can we get it out there?
Yeah.
That's like,
tomorrow.
wow.
Tuesday, tomorrow.
So the June.
It'll be posted on Facebook and the website first thing tomorrow. The paper, I have to check the schedule, but it would be relatively soon.
The June work session is the 16th. That's right. It's kind of early because the second is,
16th.
yeah. Yeah.
That gives us about 3 weeks.
I guess you need a date when you want their letters in, just several days before to give us the opportunity to review them.
Email to me, and then I'll send everything out to you once I get, yeah.
Maybe you can see if we have any record of what we asked. Like what kind of question, or were we just kind of free form? Does anybody remember?
No, I think we had a
Neil-
series of questions, right?
Neil had a sheet of questions, and they were very similar to the candidate forum. And you could probably just pull a couple off of that, plus or minus whatever else we might want to change. But I mean, it's not super. It wasn't super formal.
That kind of is fair, because that's the same questions that the mayor and our new council member had to answer, so you see those questions.
So if we ask for application or letter of interest by the 9th, that would give us a week prior to the council work session. And that would be, I think, about 3 weeks. Well,
That's plenty
actually,
of time.
3 weeks. That's plenty of time.
Plenty of time.
Yeah.
I'll have it out tomorrow.
Thank you.
Sound good?
All right, sounds good.
Two minor things real quick. The paving, we have not heard word for the 31 paving yet. I'm hoping to hear something this week.
Word in
But
terms of what,
when they're gonna start, when
Oh, okay.
CJ Miller's gonna start.
I thought, didn't they give us a date?
No, they were, it was kind of floating there until they finished up the job in Union Bridge, which got
Okay.
delayed with weather. But I've been in contact with the state and they're gonna let us know. I'll follow up again tomorrow just to get it, but I would think to hear something later this week, I would imagine.
Well, they're doing it, I've seen them a lot around. They're in Westminster right now, I know for sure. Might not be the same contractor, but it seems like a lot of folks are getting their roads paved right now.
Another quick thing here, Public Works Building and Salt Barn. Director Myers and Supervisor Tobery and I have been looking into various options and cost. Will likely go into a closed session in a future council meeting, possibly in June, to discuss a property that will be going for sale in 6 to 8 months that might meet our needs. So just a heads up on that.
And where's that property? Or can you not say?
We don't want to say at
Okay.
this point. Wayne touched on Blue Ridge pump station upgrade, and then the June 16th work session. I will be out of town from the 6th through the 16th, so we need someone to take the lead on the agenda for that meeting, for the June work session meeting. That's all I have.
All right, any announcements?
We are having we have a new wreath for the Memorial Park, which I assume will be done by the weekend, Wayne. I didn't think to ask that question. He's not listening to me. Wayne, sorry. Well, they'll be done pointing by Memorial Day weekend.
Oh, yeah, yeah, tomorrow.
So
Yeah.
the announcement is that we have a local veteran who's, I'm gonna do a Facebook Live of her putting the new wreath at the park, and the church is gonna play their bells while she's doing it. So if anybody's available in person, it'll be at 11:45 this Sunday. And if not, you can watch it on Facebook.
All right, any community event? I know that we have one big community event starting tomorrow. It's the Town Carnival, Fireman's Carnival. So I plan to attend that. Any other notices? Okay. All right, do I hear a motion for adjournment?
I'll make the motion.
Come on, Don, to get on the agenda.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any questions? All right. Motion so moved. Thank you, folks.